tonight. We hope you're being strengthened and blessed in the Lord as we look at this second part of this virus that's going about today and try to find some roots in it that may resonate with truth and give us some understanding as to what is actually going on. I told you last week that the numbers simply don't add up, and again this week they don't add up. What I want to do first is I want us to look at two passages of Scripture. The first one is a passage that we've talked about many times, and we have to talk about it many times because it is one of the major weapons in the arsenal of satanic powers as we engage in spiritual warfare, and that is the weapon of intimidation. The Bible tells us that we are not given, that God has not given us the spirit of fear. That word fear is not like the reasonable fear, not to stick your hand in a fire and such as that, but it's timidity, it is intimidation. This is spiritual warfare, and these are the things that's tied into it and the things that we must understand if we're going to fight it and if we're going to win it. These are the areas it's fought in. Intimidation is one of the tools that's used. We are now seeing through this virus, we are now seeing intimidation being used. I'll explain it further in just a minute. The second one is that the people that you see that are oftentimes called dumb or stupid in the media, the world media, other talking heads from other media groups oftentimes says of this one or of that one, how can you be so dumb? These people are not dumb. These people are engaged in spiritual warfare. And again, coming up to this crisis that we're in now, I have shared with you many times. Spiritual warfare is fought 99.9% in that fields of communication. That's where it's fought. Quickly going over it. The devil did not go into the Garden of Eden with an army. He went in talking. God did not send redemption into this earth to get man saved by an army from heaven. He sent His Word. 99.9% of all spiritual warfare is fought in the realm of communication. You must understand that. We as a nation must understand it, or we will never win this battle. And the church has been so dumbed down with all the emotionalism and crying and squalling for money and the perversion of love. The church is just about dead. And we're losing every battle because we do not, even in the smallest degree, understand what spiritual warfare is. I'm going to do my part to get it across to you. What we're looking at now is disinformation. We're looking at a devil that goes into the Garden of Eden with misinformation. He's giving them wrong information, but the information sounds convincing. The information sounds real. There even has to be some truth connected to it. Why, the most dangerous lie that there will ever be will be the lie that is 99.9% true. Or even statements that's 100% true, but the motive of the person making the statements is 100% corrupt. That is the effective lie. Satan went into the Garden of Eden with misinformation. He told Adam and Eve, as it boiled down to it, told Eve, that if you eat of the tree that God told you you couldn't eat of, you will not die, even though God told you that you would. But the reason God don't want you to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is because it'll make you smart as Him. And you'll be as a God yourself. And they bit the bait. It was all talk. It all sounded good. It was all spiritual warfare. The people on the other side of this and those that's doing the work of Satan, they're not dumb people at all. They're corrupt people. They're not ignorant people. They understand how humanity works, and they understand to the dotting of an I and the crossing of a T how to corrupt humanity. They are not dumb. And to blow them off, as so many of these so-called conservative programs do, sit there and laugh through the whole program at them. This is no laughing matter, my friend. You may laugh at them, but for the last 100 years in this country, they've won. And you better take them serious. And you better understand that news is not the answer to this country. The problem with this country is a moral breakdown. And there is nothing but morality brought back through the Word of God that's going to save us, and that's a fact. Now, once again, the numbers are not adding up. Once again, the leftist media, these of whom are waging spiritual war against this country, are blowing up numbers and causing fear, so much so that we're shutting the country down. But not only that, shutting the world down over numbers, as I gave to you last week, that simply don't make sense. This is Mr. Stephanopoulos, one of Bill Clinton's men when he was president, who is now on MSNBC, one of the news agencies that brings forth spiritual warfare against this country. And he's talking to Dr. Ben Carson. Listen to the numbers he throws out.
Here in the U.S. One expert told the American Hospital Association that close to 100 million Americans could eventually be infected with the virus. You've said you want to be transparent, that you don't want to sugarcoat the news. Should Americans be braced for these kinds of numbers?
100 million. Now, this is coming from the major news organizations, seeding and throwing out the number 100. That's a big number. 100 million Americans can be infected by this virus. Now, what's behind? What is their motive? Their motive is to keep the country shut down. Why? Because there is a presidential election coming. And if you think that that doesn't matter to the Democrats now, and they're working heads in the media, you need Dr. Carson to do some brain work on you. Everything is depending upon that election. They have made it clear. Where does this number of 100 million come from? Here's the numbers as of today, which will be last Thursday. Here's the numbers. Worldwide, the numbers right now stand at 511,000 cases. 511,000 cases. He's throwing out the number 100 million just in America. And there's only 500,000 in the entire world. And remember, according to the CDC and worldwide, 82% of that number has symptoms so low, it's minor flu, or they don't even know they have it. 82% of that 500,000. Here's another number. Worldwide, there has been 23,000 deaths. That's worldwide. 23,000 deaths. Remember, as I told you last week, 34,000 died just in America last year with the flu. But did you see on the news each and every night? Literally 24 hours a day, the numbers. 2,000 dead today, updated. 5,000 dead today, updated. 20,000 dead today, updated. 30,000 dead today, updated. 34,000 dead today from this virus, and almost 600,000. You didn't see a word of this. When 34,000 people was dying and more than 600,000 worldwide had it. Not a single statistic popped up on your screen. Nobody shut the world down. 23,000 dead worldwide. The numbers in America. 76,514 has it in America. 76,000. Where does this number of 100 million come from? It doesn't make sense, does it? Only a little over 1,000 has died in America. But this merits shutting the world down and destroying in one single stroke the best economy in 100 years in this country. And where the number 100 million just in America comes from, God only knows. It is misinformation. China, who is now about to get their problem fixed, as it is told to us, had 81,000 infected with it and 3,000 died. In a country with 1.6 billion people, they had 81,000 infected. And of that 81,000, 82% of that didn't even know they had it. A nation of 1.6 billion people. Where in God's name does this number 100 million come from? From leftist Stephanopoulos. Where does it come from? There is nothing to suggest that is a factual number. Now, in Mr. Carson's answer, there's some things to be heard. Take a listen.
There is no question that we should be informed about how we should manage our own lives. It's very important for people to understand that this virus is like other viruses, should be treated the same way. So we have flu seasons that come up frequently, and there are certain precautions that you take during that time to make sure that you don't contract the virus.
Mr. Carson tells us and answers this man's question, of whom he knows is trying to drum these numbers up and make them as large, to intimidate. Why? To keep the economy closed. Mr. Carson says there is no doubt that we should be informed how to deal with our own lives. You see, in that statement is Mr. Carson saying human beings have a responsibility to wash their hands and take care of themselves. Then he goes on to say that there are other flus, of which this one is like. Now we're beginning to ease into some sanity and some truth concerning this matter. Why is it taking so long? Because of intimidation. If Mr. Carson says people are responsible, we need to open the economy up and start living again, and the people who are the sickest, the elder among us needs to take special care, and people take care of them, and we have a responsibility. But you see, these leftists don't want personal responsibility. They want full government control. That's why they're intimidating with numbers that don't exist. Mr. Carson now is hesitant, but is now saying there's a thing called personal responsibility, and there are other viruses that's like this, and we comparing it now with normal viruses. But he's mindful of what he's doing, because he knows sooner or later the intimidation and the misinformation is going to come at them full blown. Mr. Carson goes on to say,
For people to understand that the vast majority of people who actually contract the virus are only going to have flu-like symptoms or less. Many of them will be asymptomatic altogether. So, there's a little bit of exaggeration in terms of what happens.
Okay, once again, for the first time, we're starting to hear some sanity. The vast majority, he says, is not going to have any problem. And a large number of people won't have any symptoms at all. Now we are seeing someone speak toward the truth. That I laid out 2 weeks ago and then aired it on last week's program. Now Mr. Carson is saying this is a normal virus. You get it the normal way. We have a personal responsibility to take care of ourselves, wash our hands. We do not need to shut the whole world down and destroy the economy of the United States. For what? There's a presidential election coming, and if you think that every bit of this is not revolving around that, again, Mr. Carson needs to do some brain surgery on you. Then he makes it clear that there is a whole bunch of them that will have little to no symptoms at all. But this is not pleasing to this leftist Stephanopoulos, who wants there to be worldwide panic, and panic in the United States. For what purpose? To keep the country shut down. For what reason? There is an election coming. Now you can feel Mr. Stephanopoulos here as he answers. You can feel the frustration in him that Ben Carson is actually downplaying this for the first time. And he don't like that.
I'm confused by the message you're sending right now, Dr. Carson. I have to say, we just heard yesterday the governor of California say it's not a question of when schools are going to close. I mean, if schools are going to close, but when schools are going to close. We've seen companies taking responsibility for their employees and saying, let's not have any unnecessary travel. You seem to be putting all the responsibility back on individuals, saying that they should be thinking for themselves.
We don't want individuals thinking for themselves.
Saying that they should be thinking for themselves, saying that they should be thinking for themselves, saying that they should be thinking for themselves.
Here's a very simple thing. If you have the largest outbreak in New York, shut your schools down in New York. But you don't have to do it across the entire nation. That makes sense, don't it? If California is having a huge outbreak, shut your schools down in California. If there is a place the school needs to be shut down, shut it down. But to shut the whole country down because there's a couple of hot spots here and there, again, is without reason and makes no sense at all. But we hear Mr. Stephanopoulos in this spiritual war spouting out figures and, the lie has to sound credible. A governor said it. Well, what if the governor is lying? You see, we have numbers here that we've already went through. And the numbers don't lie. 100 million people infected in America, when there's not even close to 100 million people infected in the whole world. Next, Mr. Stephanopoulos drifts into what the real motive is. This is why Jesus said, he that hath ears to hear, let him hear. He that hath eyes to see, let him see. Because they will tell you what they're doing if you're just listening. Now, up to this point, we have heard economy. 100 million in America, shut everything down. I'm confused about what you're saying. Now, Mr. Stephanopoulos moves into the second real reason. As I pointed out to you last week, the economy is the first, because you cannot beat Donald Trump with the greatest economy in 100 years. That's been going on and been being said now for years. Secondly is the rallies, as I brought out last week. It drums up a lot of enthusiasm. Thousands and thousands of people coming to his rallies. We've got to stop him from being able to talk. We've got to stop him from being able to communicate, because remember, this is spiritual warfare. And warfare in the spiritual realm is fought in communication. We must be the ones 24 hours a day that has the ear of the American people. We must silence him as much as possible in these rallies where he draws thousands and the atmosphere is out of this world. They must be stopped. He now addresses this. How dangerous the president is to think that he can go and have rallies.
Be doing? Is it time for more extensive measures? We've heard the president say, for example, that he's going to continue with political rallies in the face of this. Is this sending the right message, or is it time for broader community measures to contain this?
Mr. Trump can't go have rallies. We need to have broader communities and community services to shut down on a broader level. We need to shut the whole nation down. You see, this is misinformation. 100 million people. It's misinformation. It's based upon lying facts. And for what? To win a battle. The war of their lives, as they've stated numerous times. This presidential election. Second, the rallies. They must be stopped. So, we have a virus that breaks out. As Mr. Carson said, not much unlike the other viruses. and so far, significantly lower numbers. But we have now something we can turn into a crisis, and this is what we've needed to destroy Donald Trump. So let's go to the old playbook of these people that call themselves Democrats, who has openly stated with some of the highest level officials in the Obama administration that they don't like to let crisis go because there's great opportunity in a crisis.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
So we create us a crisis, then we don't let the crisis go without getting out of the crisis what we want. What is that? The next election. So when does the intimidation start? Well, it's already started. The misinformation set before us clearly. The intimidation, full blown, is beginning now because, see, they're beginning to ease into the numbers and the facts. And so the media is already saying that when this one dies or that one dies, Donald Trump killed him. This medicine that Mr. Trump spoke of, because the doctors spoke of it, that was used for malaria. The doctors said that it was being used, and in some cases it was helping. So Mr. Trump said, there's some help with this medicine. Well, some fella in Arizona, as the article reads, an Arizona man dies, wife ill, after taking drug touted as a virus treatment. Trump kept saying it was basically pretty much a cure. The medicine that these people took was a phosphate medicine that was designed to kill parasites in their fish tank. Now, did Mr. Trump say this cures everything? No. He and the doctor spoke about it on live television. The doctor said, I am a scientist, and I say everything has to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt, that it does not have killing side effects, that it helps. He says, I can't say that it will cure it because the test has not been done. But the fact that it has showed signs of helping along the way has been well documented. And so Mr. Trump said, it may be something good. So some fellow then goes and takes some off-brand of this designed to kill parasites in his fish tank, and he dies, and the media says, there's where the intimidation enters. That's why Trump and them has had to go along with this as long as they have. Because they know. The minute they say open the stores back, then every human being that dies 24/7, this corrupt media involved and engaged in spiritual warfare and lying communications will say repeatedly over and over and over and over, their blood is on your hands. You killed them because you opened a store. When Mr. Trump made it absolutely clear to the reporter who asked the question about that medicine.
Look, it may work and it may not work. And I agree with the doctor, what he said. May work, may not work. I feel good about it. That's all it is, just a feeling.
Mr. Trump didn't say that there was a cure-all. And the man who took the medicine was not even the medicine they're talking about. But yet he's being blamed for the man's death. You see, this is spiritual warfare. It is the weapon of intimidation. And it is through intimidation and misinformation that the United States of America is being shut down.
Saying that they should be thinking for themselves, saying that they should be thinking for themselves, saying that they should be thinking for themselves.
The darkest night shall fall. I will not fear. this battle rages on. In thy name I shall stand strong. Though friends and family depart, I will not let that steal my heart. My hands on the plow, I won't look back. I run this race till it's done. I fight this fight till it's won. Will not fear what man can do. Where I go from here is up to you. 'Cause you my rock, my light, my love. I run this race till it's done. Fight this fight till it's won.